Hey, it's Brad at Grayman Research, here to do the first part of a mini-series on do-it-yourself Kydex holsters. So in this video we'll be detailing two different builds, two outside the waistband holsters for Glock 34s, one light bearing, one non-light bearing holster, and we'll just go through the steps of each process and the tips and tricks that I've learned over the years of making Kydex holsters. So this mini-series is primarily for the individual who makes holsters occasionally for himself or for his friends. It's not necessarily meant for someone who's wanting to start a business. There are a lot more efficient and better ways of doing this if you're wanting to make a lot of holsters quickly and make a profit. But these are tips and tricks, again, that I've learned over the years, and hopefully I can share them with you guys and that you'll be able to do it yourself better. Enjoy. One of the most time-consuming but important parts about making a holster is taping and blocking the different areas for the holster, which you will only learn after experience of making many holsters exactly what areas need to be blocked and how they need to be blocked. But this is what I've done for this holster that's made for an X300, Surefire X300. I go ahead and make a light channel basically by constructing a wooden blocked area around the trigger guard, and then also a little area up here for the light to go out. And then also I always block out the sights in case people are running suppressor sights or taller sights. And then right here I also block out the mag release or the slide release button, just because there's so many variations, and this allows it to fit all those variations. And then up here I've had issues in the past with the Surefire X300 catching on the holster on the draw, and so I've gone ahead and constructed a piece of Kydex around the lip of the Surefire X300 light just to make sure that doesn't happen. Also on this side, same deal, light channel, so that the light can come out since it is wider than the body of the gun itself. Also, I've blocked out the ejection port right here just so that there's minimal wear and tear on the actual slide of the gun, and sometimes that can become an area that catches. And also areas up here, once you cut the holster to, so this will be for a right-handed shooter, so all this area behind this will get cut off. So I don't care about how this looks necessarily back here. And the same thing over here. I'll go ahead and structure the sweat guard to cut kind of up here and along the slide, and then over here. So like certain areas of this I don't care about as much looking good. But these areas up forward and front I care about looking decent, but also having the functional blocks and everything all figured out up here. So one of the most important, difficult, time-consuming parts of making a holster. But also there's a lot of stuff out there now. There's actual blocks that you can get that are prefabbed for this area right here when you're making a holster with a light channel on it. And also now some companies are coming out with guns that are already like polymer guns that already have all this junk on it. So that would be incredibly efficient in holster making if you're going to make a bunch of holsters. And the more efficient you are with this, instead of spending 10-15 minutes taping this and blocking it, if you have an actual mold that has all this on it, you can just skip that entire part of the process. As simple as it seems, one of the important parts about making a holster is cutting your Kydex to the right size and length and width. So right here I have, for this specific holster, I'll be using the black front and the coyote back. And I've cut these to 8 inches wide by 10 inches long. And the reason I do that, Previously, I tried to cut corners and use as little Kydex as possible so I could save money. But what ends up happening is you cut it too thin or not wide enough, and then when you go to make your holster, sometimes you don't lay it just right in the press, and then you end up pressing it and there's not enough edge room or room on the edges where the Kydex pieces come together to put your eyelets in. For all my holsters, for light bearing holsters, and also just holsters for a gun without a light on it, I've figured out the optimal width to be 8 inches. That gives me enough overlap so I can have little room for error if I don't put it just right in the mold. And also, I get the sheets in dimensions of 24 inches by 12 inches, so I can get 3 pieces just like this out of a 24-inch long piece. So it works out great for my pieces of Kydex and for the actual use and molding of the gun. I do 10 inches this way because it's plenty long enough for even a light bearing holster to have a full length sweat guard and have enough Kydex sticking off the end to cover the end if you want to. But I cut it from 12 down to 10 inches just because those are my trays that I use to warm up the Kydex are 10 inches long, so I'm a little restricted by that. But you want to make sure that you don't cut the length too short or put the barrel or mold or gun too close to the edge up here, because what happens is you'll get a little crimping of the Kydex. So here's an example of a holster that I molded in the past that I didn't leave enough overlap or enough Kydex sticking off the end when I molded it. And so you can see right here, you get this funky shape and it kind of bowing into the bottom Kydex piece. Here's another one, not to the same degree, but still it looks kind of crappy. It's still functional, but if you're sending these out to people, it doesn't look that professional. So don't try to cut off too much and attempt to save Kydex for something else, because in the end you'll end up wasting time and money. So here's my setup that I have for warming up the Kydex for the holsters and then molding the holsters themselves. And this has changed a little bit over the years. I actually started out in the kitchen oven, much to my significant other's dismay. But now I've graduated to this out in the garage. And I have one oven for each sheet. And I warm up both sheets simultaneously, one in the lower and one in the upper. And I have found the settings to where they warm just about the same temperature and about the same time. So I turn them on together, throw the sheets in there on their trays, and then what I do to judge the temperature while I'm waiting is I use a infrared thermometer, and I check from time to time over the course of 2 to 3 minutes the temperature of the Kydex pieces, which I aim for about 300 degrees, and I check on all quadrants of the sheet because sometimes it warms unevenly in a small oven like this. So I sometimes switch the trays around, flip the trays around. But once both sheets get about 300 degrees, then I pull them out and start molding or throwing them on the mold over here. So what I do is I throw the bottom sheet on this foam piece in my mold that I've shaped to have a curve on it. So have the foam down, throw the bottom piece down, grab the gun, throw it on top, get the other piece out of the oven that's still sitting there, throw it on top of the gun, and then throw the foam on top, close the press, push down, and then put these clamps right here on there and press down as hard as I possibly can. And so that's the process. So the reason I do 300 degrees is in the past I didn't judge by that. I just kind of timed and figured it out what worked. But the best way to really get a good result is to use an infrared thermometer and really look at the temperature of the Kydex. I use 300 degrees just because I go much more than that, and the Kydex starts warping and shrinking and melting, and I have problems with that. But too much under that, and then it's not as pliable and you don't get the best molds. So that's just the balance that I've found in my molding. Now we just wait for the Kydex to cool and harden. And in the process, I'll show you my mold. I have two molds side by side, which I constructed a while back after trying to learn how to mold things flat, and then basically heat up the Kydex and bend it into a curve for like a hip curve. And that, there's lots of problems with that. A lot of people do it very well and have no issues with it, but I found this to be an interesting solution. You basically mold the curve into the Kydex while you're molding it, and it also presents its own problems, but in the end I found that it works really well, and you don't have to mess with the molding of the Kydex after you already put it in the mold. So anyways, here's a mold if some of you guys want to craft it after that. I don't remember all the degrees and everything or widths and stuff, but you can figure it out on your own. As you just saw, the process of pulling the Kydex out of the oven and putting it in the press needs to be a very quick process, because if you don't, then the Kydex is constantly cooling and cooling at a high rate of speed while it's sitting out not getting molded. And you want it to be as pliable and as flexible as possible when you put it in the mold, so that it'll wrap around the gun and give you the best mold possible. So again, do it as quickly as you can, but without sacrificing the quality of the work you're doing.